Okay, it's 7 p.m. and we have a pretty long program, a lot of topics we'd like to cover today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining us. And I'm going to turn it over to our program director, Dr. Teresa McLeod, to give a welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Teresa McLeod. I'm the Residency Program Director for the Diagnostic Program, and I'd like to welcome you all to the webinar. We have a lot of people that are scheduled, and I'm very excited about your enthusiasm and your interest in our program. We've received a lot of questions, and what we have done is to catalog and characterize and group these questions and try to provide you with a presentation that will answer most of your concerns and most of your interests. So it's a very long program, so I thank you very much. I want to thank Hillary and all the other faculty and residents who helped to put this webinar together. So I'll turn it over to Hillary again.
Thank you so much. So this is our outline for the schedule for tonight. We're going to go over your questions about interviews and application strategies, and then we're going to move into our program and the opportunities we have here at Life in Boston, and then we'll wrap it up. As Dr. McLeod mentioned, we got so many questions, over 300 questions. Thank you guys so much for reaching out. Tonight we are focusing on the diagnostic radiology residency. The interventional radiology program is planning to have its own webinar later. So refer to their website and follow them on social media to find out when that will be. But tonight is mostly focused on diagnostic. We do have a few of our IR residents who are in the DR portion of their program or their training, as well as a fellow and faculty member who's a graduate of our program, to talk about what IR is like in the DR program. But again, tonight is mostly about diagnostic. So these are our participants tonight. Dr. Brink, our chairman, is going to say a few words at the beginning. Dr. Teresa McLeod, who's our program director, myself, and Dr. Brent Little, who are the assistant program directors. And then we have 3 faculty members who are graduates of the MGH radiology residency and who have decided to stay on. And I think that's another testament to our program and our culture, is that a lot of our faculty are products of our program or fellowships, myself being one of them. And then we have many residents. A huge portion of our residency is here tonight. We have 17 total. They've come from, as you can see, diverse backgrounds and medical schools from all over the country and the world. We put their Twitter handles up here, so you can contact them if you'd like to. And you can also visit our website, where we have a link about all of our current residents, where they went to college and medical school, and their interests. And so now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. James Brink, our chairman.
Thank you, Hillary, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining this evening. You know, whenever we get to the residency selection process each year, it's a trip down memory lane for me, because I too did my residency and fellowship at MGH more years ago than I wish to reveal, but suffice it to say that throughout the next 20 or 30 years, my various work experiences and travels took me to many different departments. And throughout those experiences, I often ask myself, you know, what is the secret sauce about the MGH residency that just makes it so special? It really is a remarkable opportunity. And I would say at a very high level, what makes it so special is that although our department is large and quite diverse in its activities and its opportunities, the residency really is the crown jewel of the department. And it's supported by tremendous enthusiasm from everyone from the most senior attendings to our research faculty, to our residents, our fellows, and our staff. All are committed to really making the residency just the terrific experience that it is for all those who are able to enjoy it. And so I'm so pleased to see so many people joining this call tonight, and many thanks to the over, I think, 20 to 30 participants from our own department, which again, I think is testament to that crown jewel support that I mentioned earlier. So enjoy your experience tonight, and thank you again for joining.
Thank you so much, Dr. Brink. So now we'd like to move into the portion where we discuss what you can anticipate for our interviews for radiology residency this fall. As I mentioned, we've received a lot of questions, over 300, and we're going to try to address as many as we can tonight. Unfortunately, we're not going to get to all of them. If you have any questions, you can also submit them to the Q&A chat, and our panelists will answer as they are able to, okay? So first, we're going to have a couple of poll questions.
Hi everyone, I'm Holly, one of the third-year residents. In order to break up the webinar a little bit, we're going to submit these poll questions to you. So I'm going to send them out right now, and you should get those questions to launch up on your screen. All right, we can leave this up while we move on to the next slide.
All right. So first, myself and Shadi, one of our recent graduates who stayed on as an abdominal fellow, we're going to discuss what will the virtual interviews look like and how can applicants learn about a program and its culture. So all of our interviews will be virtual. And that is the policy, is my understanding, across the Harvard system. We will not be interviewing anyone in person, including local applicants, to try to make it fair and an even playing field for everyone. All of our interviews will be virtual. The AAMC put out this guide, which you can find at this link, about how to prepare for virtual interviews. It has a lot of really great tips, including how to set up, how to dress, how to check your Wi-Fi, general guidelines. We're also going to offer a few things to try to make things a little more standardized, like a virtual background you can use if you like. If you're concerned about your equipment, your Wi-Fi, your webcam, you may reach out to your medical school to see if they're offering any support or space at the school to use for interviews. So definitely check out that document from the AAMC if you haven't already. Shadi, who's going to be speaking shortly, was also an author on this recent article about the virtual experience, specifically in radiology. And then if some of you might have seen on Twitter the other night, there was a tweet chat hosted by the Journal of the American College of Radiology, all about tips for virtual interview season. It was really great. You can see a tweet there from one of our own residents who's here tonight, Francis. And so if you could look at the archive of that tweet chat, there's also a lot of really great strategies. Essentially, we're going to try to recreate the same interview experience as much as we can. There will be lots of opportunities to talk to residents. We're going to have a virtual social event either the night before or throughout the interview season, so you can talk to residents the same way you would have been able to. To put on our website. Follow us on social media. We're putting lots of videos of the residents and their lives on Instagram and Twitter. And so there should be lots of opportunities for you to get to know us as a program. And I'm going to turn it over to Shadi to discuss how you can connect with programs virtually.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to meet you virtually. As Hillary mentioned, we are actively updating our website, and we're going to put a lot of useful information for you guys on the website. So please feel free to check our website periodically. We're going to also upload a lot of videos. An example of a video would be a day in the life of a resident at MGH and also outside work, and the fun things that you can do in beautiful Boston. We would suggest that you can use the social media to your advantage. Basically, a lot of our faculty, residents, recent graduates, fellows have their own Twitter. We have the MGH Rad Chief Twitter and also the MGH Department of Radiology Twitter account. We have a residency Instagram account, and we're putting a lot of information and photos and videos on that. Please feel free to reach out to any of us through social media, through Twitter. You can also email us. If you are on social media, that's great. You can probably get a good sense of what's going on in our department and a lot of success and updates and a lot of different information, but it's not an obligation. If you feel more comfortable to just shoot us an email, please feel free to do so. And we are all here for you to sort of navigate through this virtual interview season. I am myself an IMG, and my program was very, very supportive of the IMG. And we have at least one IMG per residency class. So I know what you guys are going through, and especially with the issues around COVID. So feel free to reach out and ask any questions that you have. We can also connect you to other IMGs, and they can also help you with that. In terms of the information on the online forums, there are definitely a lot of different forums that you can get a lot of information about different programs, but I would say maybe be mindful of the information and the heterogeneous information that you get from different programs. Maybe the best and most accurate information that you can get is through the people who are in that institution or the ones who are the alumni. Your mentors can also help you a ton. They can also connect you with the people who are currently at MGH or who have been MGH alumni. Please feel free to reach out. We are all here for you, and we'll do our best to answer any questions you have. Thanks, Hillary.
All right, thank you, Shadi. All right, next we're going to move into application strategies and how the applications may be slightly different this year due to COVID. And so I'd like to introduce our next poll.
Yes, I'm going to send out another question here.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce our next speakers. Dr. Brent Little, who's my other assistant program director, and Dr. Samantha Harrington, who was just finished her chief resident year and is in her final year of her diagnostic radiology residency with us.
Well, hi, thanks very much everyone for attending. I just first wanted to acknowledge that, even in a normal application year, there's always a lot of anxiety. I remember having a lot of anxiety when I applied for residency. And so COVID-19 has really amplified, magnified all of that anxiety. But one thing that I want to reassure you is that some programs like MGH are using very similar criteria, if not the same criteria as they always use, meaning we like to use holistic criteria that look not just at one part of an application, but at all parts of the application. We look for well-rounded applicants, and we also look for diversity of backgrounds and interests that will add up to a very diverse group of residents for every residency year. We have no specific cutoffs for step 1 scores. And one just last point about international medical graduates, there are always questions about that. As Shadi mentioned, we've always been very supportive of international grads, and we tend to have at least one per year. Now we're going to have to monitor the situation this year for obvious reasons of COVID-19 and border policies, but we'll let you know more in the future. But we have always been welcoming of international medical graduates. So, and with that, I'd like to turn things over to Samantha Harrington. Dr. Harrington is one of our senior residents and prior chief residents. She'll talk a little bit more about this.
Thank you so much. Brent, you did a really great job, I think, kind of covering how we look at all the applicants. And just know that, we're under unusual circumstances, and we understand how this has really thrown a wrench into everything. So try to know that we are thinking about you as a whole person. And that's really what we want. We want this holistic picture, and just be true to yourself. And I think that is something that if you take that through the application process and through life, that's the most sort of important thing that we look at. Be true to who you are, and we can see that through the application. Just know that you're choosing a really great field. Radiology is really, I'm biased, think it's the best field, and that you'll have a really great lifelong career.
Thank you, Sam. I'm going to move on to our next topic, which I'm going to speak about, and one of our current chief residents, Mari Tanaka. We're going to address who should applicants ask for letters of recommendation if their rotation or research was canceled. So first and foremost, don't be upset. I know this is, everyone feels like, the best laid plans and everything's gone awry, but we're all charting this, we're in uncharted territories. We're all trying to navigate it, and we're understanding of those circumstances that are beyond your control. And, the good news, not necessarily good news, but everybody's in the same boat, right? Everyone is dealing with the same, global situation. So what can you do if your rotation's been canceled, your research been canceled? We encourage you to get involved in the virtual radiology community. There's lots of subspecialty sites. There's lots of webinars. If you're comfortable with social media, please use that, but don't feel obligated. If you don't have a social media presence, you're not going to be penalized. It's just a way for you to interact and get involved if you want to. There are lots of virtual meetings, and the virtual meetings have allowed lots more people to attend meetings than they would have otherwise, and it also means you don't have to travel. So for example, RSNA this year is going to be completely virtual, and there's going to be lots of ways to interact with current residents, faculty, program directors through RSNA. So I would highly recommend doing that. And then there's lots of also other subspecialty meetings that are all being scheduled virtually. There's going to be networking opportunities there. Lots of the national societies have medical student and resident forums and groups. You can look into those. And the main strategy for your letters of recommendation is you should ask for the people that know you the best, someone who's going to be able to speak to who you are and your goals. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a radiologist. If you have a letter from a radiologist, that would be great. If you don't have a home program, you could consider trying to find a radiologist in your community or in your hospital who you could maybe use, get as a mentor. But if you don't have radiology, internal medicine, surgery, people who you've made a connection with, your research mentor, someone who can speak about you as an applicant. And I'm going to turn it over to Mari to speak about this a little bit more.
Hi, everyone. My name is Madi. I'm one of the chief residents this year. I'm also one of the IR and DR integrated residents. So just to continue on in terms of what Hillary was saying. So as she mentioned, in discussions with Dr. McLeod, we also very much highly value the opinions of the internal medicine physicians you've worked with and the surgeons, because in radiology we work with them as well. So it is important to demonstrate that you are able to work with them. Additionally, we understand that there were research cancellations. Different research opportunities were canceled secondary to COVID-19. So it's completely fair to list those in your ERAS application if you started them or had gotten certain funding, and just maybe indicate that it was canceled or change it, or the plans were changed secondary to COVID. And similarly for rotations, if there was a radiology rotation that was unfortunately canceled and is difficult to reschedule, it's also fair to address that in your application via the personal statement, maybe put a line in there. Next, I just wanted to talk quickly about what if your school doesn't have a core or advanced rotation. I think Hillary kind of touched on this a little, but you can reach out to a local radiologist, including private practice radiologists, and try to shadow with them and kind of first see that you enjoy it, and really try to learn and develop a mentor from that standpoint as well. I understand that there's been a couple of virtual away rotations online. So just from our standpoint, due to our affiliation with Harvard Medical School, we won't be doing away rotations at the moment that grant credit, but we are in the works of doing virtual experiences so that you can get into a feel of our program a little bit more. So stay tuned, because some of those are in the works.
Next, we're going to move on to how does one show interest in a program if away rotations are not possible. So just building on what Madi mentioned, away rotations actually have not been a huge part of our recruitment. We've only in the past typically had anywhere from 2 to 3 outside students rotate with us. And I think that's typical for diagnostic radiology. It's probably a little bit different for interventional radiology and the surgical subspecialties, but for diagnostic radiology, away rotations have never really been a huge factor in our recruitment or getting to know people process. So for this year, I wouldn't stress about that too much. Like we said, we're going to try to do some virtual experiences. We unfortunately cannot offer any virtual rotations for credit through the medical school, but we'd love to get to know you in other ways. In the same way you would have reached out after interviews in the past, like email us, send a follow-up. People are really concerned about being able to express interest if you're from a different region of the country, or if there is a reason that you are that you have a specific interest in Boston or MGH, just email us and let us know. That is a perfectly good way, and that's actually how a lot of people have reached us in the past. So that's not necessarily going to change too much in the virtual world, in this COVID-19 world. And just be honest, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. We really want to know if people want to come, and I'm sure other programs are the same way. Social media is another way to do that, but you don't need to stress if you're not on social media. If you don't have a social media presence, don't feel like obligated to do that this year. Email also definitely works. And I'm going to pass it over to Matt Lee, who's also in his final year of diagnostic radiology residency. He's actually in his mini fellowship with neuroradiology with me right now, and he is a former chief resident.
Thanks, Hillary. So I, agree with everything that Hillary said. I did not do an away rotation. I think the vast majority of my co-residents did not do away rotations either. And being a part of the resident selection committee last year, it pretty much played no role at all in the decision-making factor. So I wouldn't worry about that at all. Something that can be potentially helpful if you're interested in learning more about our program is our program has a lot of alumni. I think we're the first radiology residency in the United States, and we've had a ton of alumni, both from the residency and the fellowship, and they are all over the country, all over the world, in a lot of leadership positions in both academics and in private practice. And so, wherever you may be, there might be someone that who has had some affiliation with MGH in the past, and reaching out to someone like that, they might be able to help connect you with the program or answer any questions that you might have, and learn a little bit more about us. Another thing I just wanted to to mention is, if you don't have social media, that's perfectly fine. We're not biased in any way to say, if you're more active on social media, that's not going to necessarily help or harm your application. So don't feel like there's a pressure because everything's virtual now that you need to be on social media if you don't want to be on.
Thank you, Matt. Now we're going to go into the overview of the MGH Radiology Residency Program itself and all of the opportunities we have at MGH and in Boston. First, we're going to go to our fourth and final poll question.
I'm going to send the poll out now, and I want to thank everyone for your participation. We're getting almost everyone replying to these.
So let me just briefly describe the curriculum for the first 3 years. As you might expect, R1 is going to be fairly basic, but you'll have rotations and all the fundamentals in radiology and all the different subspecialty areas, and you'll learn about the equipment and the technology as well. So there'll be CT, MR, fluoro, ultrasound, standard radiography. In R2, the rotations become somewhat more subspecialized. There are procedural rotations. Even though you're applying to diagnostic radiology, you do have the opportunity to do invasive procedures, including biopsies in breast and chest and MSK, as well as rotations through the main interventional radiology division. There'll be experience in cardiovascular imaging, PET imaging, and we're a little bit unique in the sense that we have right next door to us Massachusetts Eye and Ear Infirmary, and you have a rotation there, and you can really learn in depth about head and neck radiology. And then R3 are more advanced clinical rotations, such as MR physics, and there's a special course at our research center, the Martino Center in MR physics. You serve in the emergency room, but more in a consultation capacity, and there are advanced rotations, GI and chest MRI. Now, we have some options for some rotations outside the MGH. One is in the Mount Auburn Hospital. Now, that's a Harvard teaching hospital, but it's somewhat between a private practice and an academic practice. They have a very vigorous residency there. They do a lot of procedures, and a number of the radiologists involved in procedures are people who trained at MGH. And if you're interested in interventional radiology, obviously applying to diagnostic, but if you'd like to, you're thinking as you go through, maybe you want to change to IR, alternatively you just want the experience, we offer a rotation there, and you work directly with the staff. There are no fellows in that department, so it's kind of a unique experience. We also have an agreement with the Brigham and Women's Hospital, which is our partner institution, for our rotations in ultrasound, and also in oncology at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. They do a lot of ultrasound at the Brigham. They do a lot of obstetrical ultrasound, and we don't do as much at MGH. So that's another wonderful opportunity. There'll be opportunities for certain electives, spending time in global health, and I know that's going to be addressed by others in a few minutes. And we also provide a very structured program to prepare our residents for the core examination in American Board of Radiology. This year has been a challenge because the date has been changed on numerous occasions. Probably going to be a virtual examination, but we adapted to that, and I think it's an important part of our teaching. I want to talk a little bit about the fourth year. I already mentioned was fairly unique. It's listed as a mini fellowship. That's we prefer to call it a focused year. It was like a mini fellowship, but it doesn't count as a fellowship year in your training. It is a residency year. There are two options for 6 to 12 months, and it really have training that's equivalent to a fellowship. You're given much more responsibility and autonomy than you would be as a regular resident. Most people spend a year in a subspecialty area, and there are some programs, or at least one in neuroradiology, that requires 2 years of specialty training. So you can do 1 year during residency and then a fellowship after that. And that applies for IR. So there is the opportunity in our program if you decide, as much as it will make me a little bit sad, but some people decide they really would like to do IR, and we do have that ESIR year. So you can switch with the approval, of course, of the IR residency, but you can switch from diagnostic to IR and start that fourth year in IR. A number of residents have used this flexible year for research, and you can do up to 6 months of research, often with grant support, but not necessarily with grant support. And then we have some other programs. One is a leadership and management program. It runs over a 3-year period, but you need to have a capstone project or a research project in management and leadership at the end of that program, and you can spend the necessary research time during that 4th year. So I think this is quite unique, and I think is a tremendous opportunity, an advantage that our program has. Next slide, and I think it goes over to Holly now.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the didactics portion of our residency, which I think is really important, and it's really robust didactic schedule to complement the daily teaching at your workstation. So we have a morning conference that's 45 minutes in the morning, and it's an unknown case conference where residents take cases in a very low stress environment, and it's really helpful to learn and listen to other residents take cases, and then learn to take them on your own. And then we have every day we have lunchtime didactic conferences, and we have them organized into monthly mini courses, which are coordinated by each subspecialty, including physics, which is covered thoroughly, and a well-conceived curriculum. There's a complete subspecialty curriculum. It's covered in a 1-year period throughout this mini course schedule. So that 1-year curriculum is repeated every year. So you have multiple times to be able to tune in and listen to these lectures. We also have journal club for each subspecialty that happens every month. We have many grand round speakers that come in from all over the country, and due to COVID, they've been Zooming in, so we haven't had to miss those. And then we also have noon conferences that allow for some wellness time where residents can go and have lunch together. And then in addition to our didactic schedule, there are subspecialty conferences for every different division. There are multiple conferences every day. When you're on that rotation, you'll attend that specific subspecialty conference. And actually, it's one good thing about this virtual nature that we're in now. A lot of these subspecialty conferences have been holding it over Zoom, so they're posted on our internal residency website so that everyone can actually Zoom into the conference if they happen to have some downtime during the day. And those include tumor boards and review cases with the different departments. And then as Dr. McLeod had touched on, we do have a board review that's it's an 8-week board review. It's for the 3rd years. It covers really high yield topics to prepare for the boards, and all of our attendings volunteer to give these lectures to help prepare you for the board. So I just wanted to touch quickly on an example of where our graduates go after MGH radiology residency. So our current graduates, the recent class who are currently fellows, it's a variety of places where they've gone. So we have abdominal, breast imaging at MGH. 2 of our previously diagnostic residents moved into the IR residency, so they are in their 2nd year of DR/IR residency. And then we have a couple in neuroradiology, one who's at MGH, the other one is at UCSF. And then we also have 2 in MSK. All over the US in different practice settings that can be resources to you. And they're very helpful when you're thinking about, applying to fellowships and applying to jobs.
Okay, so now I'd like to introduce the IR portion of our panel. So Mari Tanaka, who you've already met, who's one of our chief residents and is in the DR portion of her IR training. Rory Cochran, who's PGY3 and is also in the DR portion of his IR training, and Vince Wu, who is an IR fellow and an former MGH DR resident. And they're going to be discussing the IR experience in the diagnostic radiology program and options for IR training.
I just want to touch really quickly on the different IR training options at MGH. As was mentioned previously, we do have the integrated residency, which we have a lot of information on our website, which is also being updated. So you can refer to that for more information about how to apply to that. And as mentioned, we'll have a webinar at a later date. We also have the opportunity to do the independent residency as well as ESIR at MGH. The overall point of this is that we have basically every option to go into IR here, and the department has always been very supportive of finding ways for people to get into IR who show interest. I'm happy to take any questions about this separately because I know it gets a little nuanced. So feel free to reach out to me about that. I just want to turn it over to Rory, who's going to talk a little bit about the experience of being a IR resident in surgery and the DR years.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So as Madi alluded to, we have a really great, structured, rich experience in interventional radiology at Mass General. It's structured in a way that the first year, so it's considered a categorical program. So you match to your intern year at Mass General. And the first year is general surgery, an amazing experience where you are essentially, for all intents and purposes, a general surgery resident. Amazing experiences during that year. You operate extensively and you're treated exactly like one of the general surgery residents, doing procedures, taking care of patients, and it is an outstanding experience. I wouldn't change it. I would go back and do it again. During years 2, 3, and 4, we're diagnostic radiology residents, and we share that with all of our DR colleagues, and we're essentially all equal. And it's a great experience where we work alongside our diagnostic colleagues to get the core basic understanding of diagnostic principles to be able to do IR and be good at IR. It's an outstanding opportunity. And I'll pass it off to Vince, who can speak to the years 5 and 6 in the interventional years.
Thanks, Rory. Hello, everyone. I'm Vince. I'm in my last year of training in IR. I was actually, so when I started at MGH, there wasn't any IR/DR residency, so I was actually transferred over there. And the faculty, and including Dr. McLeod, were very supportive when I transferred. And just a quick few pointers, because we'll have another specific dedicated webinar for IR/DR residency. We have a great culture here. Our fellows are very well trained in IR. The culture here really promotes hands-on, like autonomy experience whenever you're doing a case. We're pretty much almost always the primary operator in every case, and once we get a hang of things, some of the bread and butter stuff like lines and tubes, we're very independent when we perform those procedures. We also have a lot of case volume here. We're busy. We have a busy ED, level 1 trauma center. We get transfers from other hospitals, so we get a lot of good cases from those sources. We're a busy transplant center as well. We have this very interesting multidisciplinary hepatobiliary conference where we get a lot of our interventional oncology referrals from radiation oncology and also transplant surgery. Just as a quick update, recently we actually reduced the number of our IR trainees. Last year we had a lot of fellows, like 11 or 12. And this year we only have 7. So obviously that will increase our experience with like interesting cases, our call schedule, our call structure is also changing. It used to be 2 fellows on call. Now there's only 1 fellow. Obviously it will be busier during call, but that also decreases the call volume, the call frequency, and also you'll be exposed to more interesting cases when you are on call. So we'll have another dedicated webinar for IR/DR, so stay tuned.
Thank you, guys. Okay, so next we're going to be moving on to the overview of sort of more diverse professional opportunities and educational opportunities within the residency and within the hospital. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Mark Suchi, who's a recent graduate of our program, and is going to be talking about the MESH incubator, and Mari Tanaka, who's one of our current residents, is also going to talk about her experience with MESH.
Hey everyone, great to be here. Thanks for joining us on Sunday night. I'm just going to get into it on the next slide.
Oops, sorry.
Where is So MESH is a program that stands for Medically Engineered Solutions in Healthcare Incubator. It's essentially a tech transfer incubator in the radiology program and the department. So it sits right outside the reading room, our main reading room. And I actually started with the help of Dr. McLeod and Dr. Brink and Mike G back when I was a resident. And so we've grown it to this kind of multi-service physical lab. And there's 4 main components. So there's Mesh Core, which is our main education program. So it's 5 days. You'll all have a chance to rotate through it. And just like you rotate through the chest section, you rotate through the innovation rotation, and you learn how to do 3D printing, basic AI machine learning, prototyping grants. We also have residents from other divisions now in this program. And so we were the first residency department, and still one of, I think, the only actually to offer something like this to our trainees. Mesh Advanced is a traditional accelerator. So if you have an idea and you're peripherally interested in devising it, or developing it, or spinning out a company, you don't have to do any of this. Completely optional. We have a whole program to help you do that. Interfaces with the tech transfer office industry, and helps you get funding and actually spin out a company. Mesh Consult is kind of an in-between program. So say you're interested in innovation, you don't really know where you fit in. Mesh Consult actually connects interesting industry companies in the area, and Boston's a hub for this, to experts in clinical areas. So you might be really good in research, you might be really good in GI radiology, and maybe a company could use your expertise on something, and we can connect you. And we have a bunch of hackathon, team-based events that we'll get into if you come here. But next slide, please. This is our incubator. It's a physical space, like I said. You can go to the next slide. We can just click through this. I'm going to throw it to Mari in a second, but this is one of our residents, Dan, who was putting together this circuit himself during the course. Here's some 3D printing. Actually, that's Mari right there, posting on Twitter. We'll see Mimi in a second. And actually, Mari, I'm going to let you step in here and just talk about your experience in the course.
Yeah, sure. So I did the Mesh core curriculum, and basically it was a 1-week long curriculum, and I got to participate with a couple of my co-residents, Mimi and Dan, as well as an EM resident, actually. And the program was super supportive and gave us that time to pursue it. So we basically, as Mark mentioned, went through and had multiple lectures, multiple hands-on experiences. And personally, one of the things I really took away from it was the amount of research opportunities in artificial intelligence. And as a spin-off, because of lectures that we had during that curriculum, I was able to connect with some Harvard undergrads, and I helped them with their ML course for developing an AI algorithm for intracranial hemorrhage. So that's just one of the opportunities of many, many diverse things that you can do. And it's just really great that we have support to pursue that. And Mark is very good about helping us connect. And overall, it was also just a lot of fun.
Thanks, Mari. We go to the next slide. We're almost done. You can read our case study. The ACR did a case study on us on innovation training. So there's a lot more in that article. Next slide. And this is kind of one of the hidden gems. I'm not sure it's hidden anymore, but Boston is an amazing ecosystem for a lot of things, a lot of research, but also a lot of startup, a lot of innovation. And these are examples of various grants, various funding opportunities. It's a very rich space. If you come here, you have a lot of these. You're a Harvard clinical fellow, so you have access to all these opportunities. Several of our residents have won multiple of these awards. So I'm happy to answer any questions offline, and hope to see you in a year or two.
All right. Thank you, Mark. So next we're going to move on to global health, and I'd like to introduce Dr. Monica Johnson and Dr. RJ Dami, who are going to speak more about this.
Thanks, Dr. Kelly. I'm RJ, and I had the privilege of participating in our Rwanda program earlier this year with my co-resident, Monica Johnson. So MGH has been partnering closely with a radiology department in Rwanda for essentially a decade now. This all started with one of our attendings, Dr. Robinson, actually spent 2 years there. And while there, he was pretty productive. He was instrumental in the residency, which is going strong. And also, he laid the foundations for the long-term relationship institutional support, which manifested in us having an on-site presence there 2 months every single year. For a bit more background, the partner institution of ours is the University Hospital of Kigali. That's abbreviated CHUK, with our name. And just a quick little background, the city is capital city of Kigali. It's rapidly modernizing, and it's a great place to spend time. I'll pass it off to Monica Johnson. We'll talk about the more day-to-day aspects of the program.
Hi guys. Thank you for coming virtually. I think RJ's audio is a little garbled, so I'll just say that one of our attendees at MGH has really established this long-term relationship with this hospital in Rwanda. He even lived there for a couple of years when it was first starting, so it's not just a one-off thing. It's really building a relationship there and with the residents there. So I think I can speak for RJ when I say this is like a very positive experience. It's one of the best experience that I had in residency, which overall has been very positive. Here in some of these pictures, on the bottom you can see, like, here's me feeding a giraffe, but that's not why we went. Here's a picture of one of our attendings, and this is Toussaint, who's one of the senior residents there. And the residents there are amazing. They study a lot. They have really good knowledge. They have, they study from books and they know a lot, and they're really amazing. And then on other times you're reading out the attending like you would at MGH. So we always are there with an attending. We look at cases ourselves and then we review them with the attending. And a lot of times we'll also, like maybe me and another resident, one of the Rwandan residents, will read a case together and then we'll all go over it with the attending. It's a really positive experience. Your housing and your transportation, your flight to Rwanda is all paid for by the department, so it's nothing that is out of pocket for you except for your own travel. So if anyone has any questions about it, you can ask me. You could send me an email or message me on Twitter. I'm sure RJ would be happy to answer any questions as well. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Monica. And now we're going to move into our clinician educator track. Mimi, who's been answering, I think, a lot of questions and runs our Instagram page and is one of our PGY4s. Francis Deng, who's a PGY5 and is also doing a neuroradiology mini fellowship with us right now. And Dr. Brent Little are going to speak about this.
Yeah, and thank you. So this actually is a track that we're getting off the ground this year. And this was a resident initiative. Mimi and Francis actually came up with the idea to do this at MGH. And it's really a set of various pillars to help prepare radiology residents for careers if you're interested in specifically teaching and education as academic careers. And so we have a set of didactics set up, both in terms of grand rounds lectures from people across the country who are well-known educators talking on education topics, coming up in November and sprinkled throughout the year as well. Also, we plan some teaching practicum to help you practice, help the residents involved in the track and other residents practice their teaching skills and get feedback on that. And also we plan on having the residents do scholarship projects that are sort of capstone projects aimed at publication or presentation, all on education topics. Also, it's important to know that we have a mentorship system that we're setting up through this track so that you can be paired with someone among the faculty who's interested in education and teaching and who can best serve your needs. And I'd like to, Francis Deng would like to talk a couple of minutes about some of the curricula that he has set up with Mimi.
Sure. On the next slide, I'll just speak for 1 minute about the specifics of the track. There are so many opportunities and resources within the department and at Mass General in general that we felt be prudent to formalize into a track, kind of divide up the milestones to suggest to residents who are interested in having a career as educators to try to participate in each of these aspects. So with respect to teaching, we'll have residents attend the Mass General Brigham sponsored clinical teaching skills course. And then during years 2, 3, and 4, actually participate in teaching of first year medical students in their anatomy course, teach clerkship students who are taking their monthly required clerkship in radiology at MGH, as well as teaching junior residents as part of the introductory bootcamp course. With respect to service, the track residents will help faculty in divisions to organize and improve educational material internally, and they'll be encouraged to participate in the hospital level education committees so they can see behind the scenes as to the administrative issues that concern different programs. Over the course of the residency, the residents will develop a scholarly project and execute that with the support of academic time during the 4th year. And then finally, the resident will participate in the internal didactic curriculum, which would include journal clubs, small group workshops, and grand rounds but also take hospital level, career development sessions, such as those organized by the partners or Mass General Brigham Center of Expertise in Medical Education, do a AAMC sponsored medical education research certificate, take a course at Harvard Macy Institute, and the list goes on and on. So with that, I'll leave this and move on to the next slide for the next track. So a little bit about the logistics. We expect 1 to 2 residents be expected are selected or elect to participate in this track per year, and they would indicate their interest during their first year of radiology residency, and then over time we'll complete these milestones towards the completion of the track. And the goal is to develop a teaching portfolio and educational portfolio that will be foundational to starting your career as an academic clinician educator.
Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to the next tract, our management and leadership training tract, which was developed by Danya Day, who is a graduate of our program and now faculty, and Dr. Monica Wood, who also just graduated and is continuing her neuroradiology fellowship at MGH.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on a Sunday night. So I'm going to talk briefly about the management and leadership training program that I started back when I was a resident with support from Dr. McLeod and Dr. Brink. So the idea from the program is to prepare residents who are interested in management and leadership later in their career for such roles. And the program has 4 different components. We have a didactic component that consists of a series of lectures that happen during Moon conference, usually about once a month or once every 2 months, that cover policy, economics, and different topics in management and leadership. Those are typically given by people like Dr. Brink or hospital leaders, among other people. We also have an experiential learning component where you get to go rotate with hospital and departmental leaders. Back when I did this program, I went and followed the hospital CEO for 2 weeks, and I also went and followed Dr. Brink for 2 weeks. We also have a scholarship component where you're required to work on a project relating to management and leadership. And finally, you get a mentor, both a departmental leader mentor as well as a hospital leader mentor throughout the program that you can talk to. So this is a longitudinal program that spans all 4 years of residency. People usually enroll in their first year, and then during years 2 and 3, they will attend the different lectures for the didactic component. They will do their project as well as do the different practicums following different hospital and departmental leaders, and they will be meeting with mentors throughout the program. And the program will culminate in a capstone experience during the 4 years, during the 4th year, as Dr. McLeod mentioned, where residents who are participating in the program will do a 6-month focused MLT experience. For me, I did my focused experience working with the Senior Vice President for Quality and Safety in the hospital, and it was a phenomenal experience. So just some logistics about the program. Usually we open the applications in the spring semester of the first year for all new residents, and we select 1 to 2 residents every year. And at the end of the program, if you complete all the components, you will receive a certificate in health management and leadership at graduation. With this, I'm going to turn it over to Monica, who also just graduated from the program, to share her experience.
Thank you, Danya. So I'm Monica Wood. I just recently graduated from the residency and the MLT program, and I'm just going to share in a few seconds some of my favorite experiences from this program. So I think one of the highlights of the program for me has been the experiential component, shadowing hospital and departmental leaders. I think they really present an authentic window into their daily work, their leadership styles, the decisions that they face every day, and some of the skills that I think we can acquire to become better leaders ourselves in the future. And through this program, I had exposure to topics that are not traditionally included in a residency curriculum. And as Danya mentioned, the didactic component is available to all our residents, which is really fantastic. And the added experiential components are a very unique aspect of the program for those who choose to enroll. Even though I'm only a recent graduate from the program, I've already applied a lot of the skills that I've learned through the program in my work with the American College of Radiology and other organized medicine and organized radiology groups. But I think regardless of or the type of leadership role that you see yourself taking on in the future in your career, this would be a really fantastic, unique opportunity. And I'm happy to answer any additional questions offline. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Okay, next we're going to move on to research opportunities. Dr. Brent Little, Shadi and Matt, who you've already met, and Dr. Efren Flores, who's one of our graduates of our program and now and has been on staff for several years, are going to discuss opportunities at MGH for research.
Thanks, Hillary. So this is a slide that I actually made last year when showing our during the residency application. I kind of, you know, when you first get to MGH, it's a little bit overwhelming because there are so many different research opportunities, and it really is like a candy shop. Whatever you'd want to do, there's something for you. Can we go to the next slide? So there essentially is basically whatever you want to do, anything you can think of. There's going to be a faculty member, there is going to be grant support, anything that you like, someone is going to be already there doing it. And, you know, the world is really your oyster. There's a lot of opportunities. And, you know, I think the real challenge actually at MGH is just figuring out what you want to do, because there are just so many things to do.
Resources of a department is behind your back to tailor it through your experience and tailor it towards your ultimate goal. There is absolutely no obligation to do research during residency. You can do little or like zero research, and you can actually go all the way and do a lot of research and extensive research too, if your career goal is basically to become a physician scientist. In terms of my experience and Matt, we both got RSNA research resident grant, and myself, I used the 6 months of research time during the 4th year of residency last year, and I stayed at the Martino Center for doing my basic research, and then I used that data and applied for another research funding at MGH, and then another research funding opportunity at NIH. So none of this would have been possible without the support that I got from the residency program and also the department. The other thing is that all of our residents will basically get the time that they need to do their research project if they have a mentor and a project proposed, and they can get the time and financial support to present their work at the national and international meetings. And also all the 3rd-year residents basically go to RSNA. It doesn't matter if they present any work or no, but this would be just like a great experience of RSNA for the whole week. Thanks, Hillary.
Thank you, Shadi.
And I just wanted to talk for a couple seconds about how approachable research can be for residents at MGH. I know as a medical student, I felt a little bit intimidated by research, but what I found at MGH is that for large projects, small projects, unfunded projects, funded projects, there's so many opportunities, and it's so approachable for so many residents. Even if you thought that you weren't that interested in research, you can find something that you are interested in. And these are some examples recently of very timely articles that have been published by Min Lang and Avik Som, who are 2 of our residents, working with faculty within various divisions. And if we could go to the next slide. You can see that MGH is pretty much the top funded, NIH funded department in the country in radiology. If you add in some additional non-NIH funds into this budget, it's well over $100 million a year. And so you can see that that means that there is somebody who, as Matt said, is interested in doing just about anything that you can think about. And you can see here that residents have been very successful, as Matt and Shadi have been, in getting RSNA research awards and Rentgen Ray grants and AUR grants. Every grant you can imagine, someone has actually already been successful in doing that, and the faculty can help you with those grants. And I'd like to introduce Efren Flores, who's going to talk about some of his research and tie in with the health disparities part of this.
So thank you for having me this evening, and thank you everybody for doing such a great job presenting. And one of the things that I think that I want to stress during this time is that it's a truly research, how we see it, is a more of a team approach, but also research as an opportunity to follow your passion, and more so as a career development. It's really not forced. Mandated is something that happens. Even some of the projects just happen from having conversations in the reading room with an attending. So we had a little bit of media, but it's not only for on the personal level, of course, I'm biased because I'm really focused on health equity and disparities, but more so, it's just it speaks to the openness of the department to explore any research idea that you may have, and how we can utilize this to pursue your career interest. And as Shadi, Hillary, Matt, others have said, this really feels like a lot of opportunities that we don't, you don't have to have a specific level of research experience before. The department is supportive, and you'll find your path depending on your interest, whether it's leadership, policy, educational, clinical research, AI, you name it. We'll be here to support it. You'll have the clear mentorship to guide you in the process, and develop a team that we can work together toward this research. But also more so, if I move to the next slide, how the research in disparities and equity leads to a lot of the diversity and equity and inclusion work that is a key mission in our institution. Not only we have a diversity and equity and inclusion committee in the department, but also we have a leadership structure at the organizational level. And these are initiatives that are well supported in leadership, research, education, as you can see here. Dania, myself, Dan Chonde, other colleagues such as Anna Narayan. We have program director, manager, or Carmen, but it's very supported by Dr. McLeod and Dr. Brink, because without their support, this couldn't be happening. So I just want to lead the next slide, or the next part, to Claude to talk about his experience in this space, but also through the Center for Diversity and Inclusion at the MGH level.
Thanks, Efren. Hi, everybody. My name is Claude Guerrier, and if you don't know how to spell my name, there it is down there with my Twitter handle. And I'm a recent graduate of the residency program. Just started my breast fellowship this 1 month ago now. Time's flown by. I just want to tell you about my experience over at the Center for Diversity and Inclusion. I was very involved throughout residency, and over the last 2 years, I was on the executive board of the Resident Fellow Committee, so it allowed me to have connections not only with radiology, but also hospital-wide. So for me, mentorship was one of the main factors that I focused on when choosing my residency. And the Center for Diversity and Inclusion allowed me not only to have mentors in radiology, but also throughout the entire hospital. And I'll actually be starting a grant writing program because of someone that I met through the CDI. So we also had a lot of community service events, and these pictures just show 3 of the events that we had over the last year. On the left, that really is perfect timing because this weekend is the 125th National Medical Association Committee or convention. So that was a picture from last year's SNMA conference with some of the executive boards of the CDI. The top right is the Harvard Residency Showcase from last year. And I was a panelist. You can see me in the back corner over there. So, so we actually have our other one coming up 1 month from now, September 12th, 2020. You can follow that Twitter handle and save the date. And then the bottom right is one of the CDI sponsored social events, which are almost monthly. And we have an annual NFL Patriots game that we attend. So, so it's been great. And feel free to reach out to me on Twitter if you have any other questions.
Okay, so I know we're running a little bit over time. If you guys can stay, if the attendees can stay, we have several more slides to sort of speak to resident life in Boston and what our residency culture is like. So if you can stay, we'd really love for you to stay if you can.
So in the interest of time, I'll try to be very brief, but a few years ago, I started the Women in Radiology group with Sandra Rincon, who's one of the neuroradiology attendings. And the goal of the group was really to create a community for women in radiology, as well as everyone who is supportive of the advancement of women in radiology. And every year we put together anywhere between 6 to 8 events that cover social events, networking, as well as career development opportunities, and a number of book clubs. You can see here on the slide some of the events that we've done in the past couple of years. And I'll turn it over to Mimi and Sam to talk about their experience with the group.
I think Danya did a really great job covering it. I think it's just a really great opportunity to make connections both when you're working together in the reading room and as well as outside. We have a lot of social events, and it's just a really great way to connect with other women in the department.
Yeah, I really can't agree enough with what Sam and Dania have both mentioned about how supportive the environment is here. Dania has mentioned our programming that we place every year, including the Lucy F. Squire Lecture, where we invite national speakers, and also our book clubs, which are much more intimate opportunities for us to discuss challenges facing women in the workplace, as well as topics related to current events in a very supportive, open environment.
Thank you all. And that's actually my apartment on the bottom right, where we had our first book club. And it was like 0 degrees outside, and we still had an amazing showing. So it's faculty, it's research faculty, it's residents, it's fellows. It's a really great time. And so now we're going to move on to wellness and life in Boston. And so I'd like to introduce Sam, who's one of our PGY3 residents, who's going to talk about the Wellness Committee, and Mimi is also going to speak to that.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm just going to speak briefly about the Wellness Committee, of which I'm a member. So the Wellness Committee's purpose is to organize events for residents to come together. And I want to say that wellness is very much a priority at MGH, and there's sort of institutional support for that in the form of a dedicated budget, which is in the thousands of dollars. And I think if you ask most MGH residents, they'd say that we actually have a very high quality of life, and that our wellness is actually very high. And this is one of the ways in which we further that. And so on the slide here, you can see some photos from various wellness events. You see we have some like bowling events, ice skating, apple picking. This was an ugly sweater party in which you can see Jason really definitely took the cake. In COVID times, obviously it's been, we've had to get somewhat creative, but we have still tried to make it a priority to commune as we're able. So in the bottom, you can see a screenshot from one of our Zoom Hangouts, and then a socially distanced picnic. And the other thing I want to say is that we're interested in like the programming that residents want. So we like to solicit input. Prior to setting the schedule, we sent out a survey. And if there's an event that you want to throw, we're happy to put some money behind it and get the event done. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mimi to talk more about life in Boston.
I really want to commend Sam and his Wellness Committee co-chairs for their excellent programming this past year. Next slide, please. And these events really go a long way to helping us build our resident community. And speaking of that community, it really in turn goes a long way to make our residency years really memorable. The relationships that we build here take us well beyond our residency training. And here we have some pictures from our past gatherings. As Matt mentioned way back, I really can't emphasize enough both how deep and wide that MGH community is and how that carries over into your career after graduation. Next slide, please. We obviously attend our formal departmental events together, but we also enjoy spending time together outside of work, and I think that really speaks volumes for what kind of people form the residency. We celebrate milestones together, and these milestones are both big and small, or we get together just because. And I would definitely be remiss to say, if I didn't bring up that these relationships definitely extend to our partners and families as well, who become part of the extended MGH Radiology family.
Thank you guys so much. So next we're going to talk about living in Boston, and we have several residents who have families who live in different parts of Boston to discuss moving to Boston with a partner or spouse, with kids, and different options and support the department and hospital have for you.
Hey everyone, Madi here. I just want to talk really quickly about how amazing Boston is as a city, given the number of opportunities. Especially if you have a partner who's in medicine. We have many hospitals, so that really opens up opportunities for the couples match. But also if your partner or spouse is in a field other than medicine, Boston has numerous academic institutions, financial institutions, law firms, a big tech startup scene. We are headquarters to quite a few companies, as well as nonprofit organizations. So my personal experience is my significant other is a academic in computer science and was able to do his postdoc training at MIT, and then he got a professorship at Boston College. So we feel very fortunate that Boston allowed us to have that flexibility. And I'm going to turn it over to Brooks, one of my co-residents who couples matched.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us and sticking around. My name is Brooks. I met my partner at Hopkins, and then we couples matched up here. She went into internal medicine, and now she's an attending after doing a substance use and addiction fellowship. We had a kid. He's amazing. Life has been great. It's just an incredibly vibrant environment here where there's so many opportunities for everyone to do whatever they want. To be a part of this amazing community, and I hope to see you guys around.
Thank you, Brooks. So now I think Sam Harrington is going to take over from here to talk about some of the support the hospital and department provides for families.
Thanks. So many of us have had kiddos during residency. So I know sometimes people are afraid to ask about that, but it's very important in our residency that we feel supported all around. So we have, there's photos of like lots of our kids. So it's great having such a nice community because we're able to sort of like all ask each other questions, advice about parenting. I was literally just texting Brooks like 2 weeks ago about which car seat to get. We have a parental leave policy of 8 weeks. So that means you can take the 8 weeks. You don't have to make any of it up. You still have all your vacation. We have a variety of other resources. We have a parenting handbook, so it can be really scary when you first become a parent, and we try and help support each other by kind of gathering all the resources. So it's a very supportive community, and we do all we can to support our radiology resident parents.
And I think Will Terrell is going to talk about some options for moonlighting, supplementing salary, and living in Boston and the cost of living.
I'm Will Terrell. I'm one of the R4s here, also a parent, and I will just echo what Sam said. It's an extremely supportive environment for parents. There's a ton of resources that both the institution offers, and then just getting advice from other parents who are attendings and residents. It's a great environment for parents, and also the city itself is just wonderful. In your R2, R3, R4 years, you can really supplement your income substantially, tens of thousands of dollars a year, which not only makes living in Boston very feasible, but also very comfortable. And you get a chance to really get out and explore the opportunities that the city has to offer, and get to, help get your kids through some of the great educational opportunities that Boston has to offer as well. And in addition to that, it's also, this is moonlighting that is not the most taxing work. We make sure that operations run smoothly and safely, but it also gives us a lot of free time to work on studying, to work on research. It's a phenomenal opportunity, very generous opportunity that Mass General offers. And I just want to emphasize that, as a parent, it's something that makes the program and the city very affordable and very feasible as an option for any parent. I think Rory's going to speak more about housing in Boston.
Yeah, so I am also a father. I have a 6-year-old, but you don't have to be a parent to come here. We have the array. Some of us are single, some of us have families. I came with my family. I have a little one that wanted a yard and have a dog, so we wanted to get something a little more expansive, so we moved outside the city. I came from Southern California, San Diego specifically, and I found honestly that we wouldn't have been able to buy in San Diego like we could here. So I think it is an expensive city. It's not to say that it's not, but I think there are options. There's a lot more options than we had in Southern California. So I live outside the city and I commute in, which is completely doable. There's a number of us that actually live outside the city. We were able to buy a home, which is awesome. So I hope to see you here, and hopefully we'll have a barbecue at our place. Holly's going to take over here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Rory. I also echo what you just said. I also bought a condo in Rosendale, which is a part of Boston a little bit further away, but I'm able to commute into the city quite easily, and cost of living is a little bit less out here. So MGH is, as you saw in the previous slide, it is positioned in a great part of the city. It's right along the Charles River, and the Charles River actually separates Boston from Cambridge. And the Esplanade is home to the Boston Hat Shell, which you can see down there in the bottom corner. It's an outdoor concert venue. The Boston Pops play there on the 4th of July. They have many free concerts and events there as well. And then also, if you enjoy running, Boston is definitely a great place for you. It's actually rated 3rd best city for running in America, and the Esplanade is one of the most popular paths. It goes from 1 to 17-mile loops. I definitely stay on the lower. Next slide. Yeah. And I won't go too much into this because we all know Boston is a great, fantastic place for professional sports. It's actually the only city that's won championships in all 4 sports since 2000. And it's also in the top for winning all 4 sports in the same year. And also it's a, amazing opportunity to run the Boston Marathon. A lot of our residents do participate in that. Hopefully this year will be rescheduled to another time. And then in the bottom, there's also a picture of the head of the Charles, which is where hundreds of thousands of people come to row. It also has a vibrant art scene where we have the MFA, and then you have the ICA, Institute for Contemporary Arts, which built a brand new building in 2006. And then there's also Boston Symphony Hall, which is at the bottom. And then on the next slide, we'll have some more pictures near MGH. And we'll see a picture at the top, which is really beautiful. It's a view of the Longfellow Bridge from across the street of MGH. And that bridge is what takes you from MGH over to Cambridge. You can walk or take the train. And then the view where the snow is at the top is actually taken from the Arnold Arboretum when I was snowshoeing after work one day. It's this beautiful, huge area of, just Arboretum, and it's run by Harvard, and you can cross-country ski, snowshoe, run, whatever your heart desires. And then the bottom, we also have the swan boats, and then we have the Make Way for Ducklings, where people decorate based on the time of the year. They were all wearing masks last week, actually. And then if you want to get outside of Boston, Boston is positioned in a great place in New England to be able to do day trips, to be able to do weekend trips. The mountains are very, very close, New Hampshire, Vermont. And then that's actually me down the bottom snowshoeing again, and that is just a couple miles outside the city at Fells Reservation. And then you can go up to Maine to Acadia. And then there's some other mountains up there in the right. I usually stay really low down in the mountain when I go snowshoeing, so I'm not sure what mountain that is. I definitely did not go up top. But I know this is a lot of information, but Boston is really a great place for, arts, culture, diversity, innovation hub, just getting outside, having a good time. Yeah, we hope to see you here.
Thank you so much, Holly. So that is the end of our program for tonight. I apologize, we went a little over. Like I said, we just had a lot that we wanted to say and a lot of people I wanted to be able to talk with you guys. We do have one more webinar scheduled on August 30th. There's going to be a lot of the same information in that one. So if you participated in this one, don't feel like you need to register for the next one. We're recording this. We're going to post it on our website. Please follow us on social media. You will also, when you leave the webinar, get an completely anonymous post-webinar survey. We'd love to get your feedback. You'll also get an email about it tomorrow if you don't fill it out tonight. So please take that survey at your leisure. Follow us on social media, get in touch with us, and thank you everyone for participating, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Thank you.